everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and welcome to my show on Jimmy Savile. All right. Yes, this is going to be, there's a lot to bring out here, but what I'm specifically wanting to do in this show is to get to what the evidence actually shows us, exactly what crimes, if any, he committed, and how this all played out without a lot of the emotion. Because I looked at the comments on a number of YouTube channels, and the emotions are so strong. And so I'm going to do this without that kind of emotion, because I'm a criminal profiler. I'm analyzing this for the evidence. So let me get started. First, I want to welcome everybody who is here in the chat room, which is so many. Lisa, both Lisas are here. Red Rum is here. Molly's here. Gretchen's here. Who else is here? Benny's here. Christine's here. Molly's here. Florence is here. Kyrie's here. Have I got everybody? I missed them. Did I say Gretchen? Benny's here. If I missed you, I feel bad. Okay, and I'm sure there's going to be a few more coming in. Now, by the way, in case you would like to be in the chat room and you're wondering why this show says, oh, it's a live show, but why am I not viewing this live? It's because you have to join Patreon. This helped the fact that the people in my chat room for the live show are Patreons. They're supporting the channel, but even better, they're a great community as opposed to being all kinds of people coming in and causing trouble and bots and things like that. So if you'd like to do that, join Patreon. And also you could just subscribe to the channel to help out, like this video, and also hit the bell, because that'll give you the all the other shows that are coming up. And that's a book I wrote. You can see that below too. Okay, that's it for the channel. All right, now let me get to this guy. All right, now, first of all, I want to explain to you that I'm an American. If it's not obvious that I'm an American, right? And I have a lot of UK subscribers and Patreons, and they said, hey, are you going to do something on Jimmy Savile since the Netflix documentary came out, this one, British horror story, Jimmy Savile. And I'm like, oh, okay. I have no idea who Jimmy Savile was. I mean, I had no idea at all. I've never even heard of him. So telling you, people in the US may have no clue. So I had to go find out. So I did watch this Netflix, and a lot of people who commented on this particular Netflix documentary hated it. I'll tell you that straight up front. They hated it. It came in two parts, and the first part was almost all about everything wonderful that Jimmy Savile had done in his life, how popular he was, and that really ticked off a lot of people who believe he's guilty of being a serial predator. I, on the other hand, have no background in anything that he was or did, and I watched this and said, oh, he's quite the showman. He's done quite a lot of good things. I learned a lot from this part of the documentary, that he did a whole bunch of things in his life. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. And then the second part of the documentary did more of that, and then they had I think only 2 or 3 women come in and say, he did naughty things to me. And I wasn't really impressed by how, if they were going after the British horror story here, they weren't doing a very good job of convincing me that he had committed hundreds and hundreds of crimes across over half a century. I'm like almost saying, okay, he's a interesting fellow. He's quirky. He's a showman. He's smart as hell, and maybe he's a little handsy, shall we say. But does that mean he really did these things, or is this being blown out of proportion now that he's dead? Because once he died, this is when it all blew up. All right, so my opinion on this, if you're going to watch one of these shows, I wouldn't recommend this. It was good for me as a naive and completely unknowing American. This was good just to get my interest in the whole concept of who this guy was. However, I do not think It presented evidence very well. So I'm going to tell you the second one. And after I tell you the three different documentaries, I'm going to go back now, and then I'm going to tell you a bit about his life. First, I'm going to tell you a bit about me and why I think I have a very solid and varied viewpoint on this, which because of my experiences, which other people may not have. So I'm going to go back and do that. We'll talk about just the very basics of his life, because, I mean, his life, there's a huge amount of stuff. So you can read that on the internet, and you can see it in these shows. So anyway, so I'm not going to redo that. And then I'm going to get into the evidence of his crimes and what I think this evidence proves. Okay? Did I say he did crimes? Okay. He has not been convicted of a crime. I want to point this out. Jimmy Savile has never been convicted of a crime. During his lifetime, he never, ever was arrested or convicted. So he's a dead guy, and he cannot defend himself. And I just point that out, not because I'm saying that he's innocent of what people are accusing him of. I'm simply saying he's dead and cannot defend himself. So, all right, so he is not a convicted criminal. All right, let's just keep that out there. All right, so now let's go on to, there's two more documentaries. After he died, the next documentary came out, was put out by ITV, and it was called Exposure. All right, and let me see what the whole name of this thing was. It was called Exposure, The Other Side of Jimmy Savile. Now, it was done by Mark William Thomas. This guy. He used to be a detective. He's now a private detective. And he loves to do lots and lots of documentaries. Now, I'm going to say, because I like to be honest, I'm not overly fond of this guy. I don't like his detective work. I don't like his analysis. I don't. I'm sure he doesn't like mine either. He is one of the people that says Madeleine McCann wandered outside of her house and got snatched. I don't think he has any evidence for that, so it bothers me that as a detective he would say that and ignore all the other evidence. He also says that Oscar Pistorius is a really good guy who just made a mistake. And if you wonder about that, please go to my video on Oscar Pistorius, and you will find that I do not agree with him, that I believe he murdered his girlfriend in cold blood. Now, he also did a thing on Jill Dando. I also have a video on that. And what concerns me with that is not that he doesn't think the guy that was convicted was innocent, but that he's really pushing a conspiracy theory how she was killed by a hitman and because of her crime work. And I just find that a little bit over the top, because there's a tremendous amount of people who do crime shows, hosts of crime shows, and people don't usually hire professional hitmen to knock off crime show hosts. So I have a problem with him. However, I will say this. This one that he did, Exposure, was way better than the Netflix one. He was very had a calm demeanor during that. He presented people who had reasonable stories. I learned a reasonable amount from the documentary. So I will say, if you want to watch his documentary Exposure, it is on Netflix, and I'll put a link to it. So that was one of the ones I think he did better. Okay, now it's interesting that after Jimmy Savile died, within a year, this documentary came out with him. And so the media was chomping at the bit, believe me. And now that, it's interesting, when he was alive, they did ask him weird questions and stuff, like, hey, do you like little girls? Stuff like that. But they never pursued it too far, because Jimmy Savile made them a fortune of money. After he's dead, he ain't making them any money. So why not go full force against him? And I'm going to talk about the media issues in a minute. So then he suddenly just shows up and he does this documentary with ITV. So, I'm a little trusting of the media and this guy. But the documentary that came out was okay, and it did start an investigation. All right, so that one's not bad. Now, there's a third one, and this is called, this came out, it says Discovery, Jimmy Savile, The People Who Knew. This is the best documentary, in my opinion. I really like this, and this had enough information in there that I felt I could make a proper analysis of what happened, the evidence, and the people that were, that the people were testifying. There was only one part in it I thought went down a rabbit hole with one dude that said some stuff that I thought was probably complete garbage. I didn't buy it. It's one of these, everybody in, everybody's involved in some kind of child sex ring. I didn't go for that part. I wish I had left that out because that was not substantiated and it shouldn't have been in the show. And he wasn't even very believable. But the rest of the show was excellent. So I would recommend watch this one. You can also see this on YouTube. So that's free. If you don't have Netflix, just skip over the other one because it's really not worth watching unless you just know nothing about this guy. But hey, if I'd watched this one first, I could have skipped the Netflix documentary. All right, so there we go. All right, now I hope everybody can hear me. Can everybody hear me properly? I forgot to even ask that. Usually I ask that just to make sure that we have people can see and hear me properly. Can you see and hear me properly? While I'm waiting for that comment, did anyone see Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols speak to Piers Morgan about this? Yes, he did actually say something like, "This guy's creepy," and made a couple comments, and so that was quite interesting. That's yes, you can see and hear me? Okay, I'm hoping that's what it is. All right, so those are the 3 shows. I would go with this one. If you don't know much about Jimmy Savile or you want to know about what he's being accused of and who's accusing him, check this out. Okay, everybody can see and hear me. Good. I was a little worried. I forgot to ask that. All right, now let me get back to, before I go into I'm going to do a whole 1 minute description of his earlier life. But before I do that, I just want to point out a few things about myself and why I think I can come with a very unbiased viewpoint, which I think a lot of people can't because they either come from one side or the other side. And I come from none of those sides. I come from all of them. All right. If you don't know me well, I've been a television commentator since the early 2000s. I started into television when I was 45 years old. I've done over 3,000 television appearances. On crime news, I was a Nancy Grace regular in America. I did the Today Show quite often. Let me see where my pictures are here. I did this is one of my Today Show things. I did, here, actually this is, wait a minute, hold on a second. I have problems. I forget to pull things off the screen. Okay, can you see sun there? So I've done British TV, I've done Canadian TV, I've done Australian TV. So I've been around that block, you know what I mean? Been around the block. Now, the reason I point this out, it's not for braggery. Is that a word? Anyway, the reason I point this out is I've been around TV. So I'm not somebody who's on the outside saying, I wonder what they do in TV, and do they do this, and do they do that? Here's what I can tell you. I was fortunate when I entered TV at the age of 45, because quite frankly, even though I was actually not bad looking at that age, I wasn't like overly proposed by the men because I was older and they had younger things available. That doesn't mean I never got propositioned. And I'm not going to say the name of the person, but a well-known television broadcaster in the U.S. and very popular. I did a show with him one day. I was standing in Washington, D.C. talking about a crime. And after I finished the show, somebody wrote to me and said, "Did he touch your butt?" and I knew why he asked me that question. And I said, no, there was an elderly lady in between us. So no, he didn't put his hand on my butt. But do these things happen? Do you get propositioned in the television world? The answer is yes. The other point about this is, does television protect themselves because a crap load of money is invested? Yes. When you're a host of a show, there's a lot of things you won't do. There's a lot of people you won't talk about because you're making a couple $1 million a year, if not more, and you're not giving that up to be a whistleblower. So a lot of people shut up because they don't want to lose their careers, which are huge. So that's a TV aspect. Now, as far as young girls go in television world, this is me at the age of 19. I went to Hollywood. I did some modeling. I did some extra work in films. And let me tell you, I got propositioned big time. Why did I get propositioned big time? Okay, if you can't see that, that's a pretty good looking girl at the age of 19. And if you were a 40-year-old man who was at Universal Studios, as one time was true, when I went in to get a role in a film, and he said, hey, let's go to dinner, and I turned him down, and he threw my resume across the table at me and said, call me babes when you get into the union. He kept the picture. So I was there for a year. I did not sleep with anybody. I made no headway at all in Hollywood. And people and young women were sleeping with everybody. Now, this is a good point I want to make before we get into what he's guilty of and what he's not. What happens is, in places like Hollywood and TV, for people who are over the proper age, there is a casting couch. And women are coaxed toward that casting couch. And oftentimes they will accept the casting couch, which means you're going to have sex with a guy, whoever it is, an actor or a producer. And by doing so, you will get a shot at being on screen. Because a lot of times these girls don't have great skills. They're just cute, pretty, whatever. But they don't have a lot to offer. And they're in a field which has hundreds and thousands of good-looking other women. I mean, I didn't look bad, but everybody else looked pretty damn good too that was around me, and they slept with people and I didn't. So, down for me. Anyway, so they do that, and oftentimes they get involved with taking drugs. We see the Bill Cosby situation, because Bill Cosby was a horn dog in Hollywood, and he did go to prison for supposed rape. I never was totally believing that he committed rape. I believed he offered quaaludes to girls who wanted to get into the pictures. They took them, they had sex, and eventually they could accuse him of rape. And this is why I'm open-minded about Jimmy Savile. Was this the situation? Did girls want to get into the pictures, get into television? They showed up at shows. Did they want to be on camera? Were they willing to do whatever they're willing to do? Now, mind you, this has to be over the age of consent. Is it ethical? Is it moral? No. The casting couch is unethical and immoral. Bill Cosby was an immoral human being. But I don't know that he committed a crime, although he was convicted of one. I will put a link to the blog I did where I accused Tommy Chong of Cheech and Chong of sexually assaulting me on a film set. And I only did that to prove that you can't always believe women. You can't. The Me Too thing, there are women who are coming forth and being very open about what's happened to them. And then there are women who are just lying like a dog. In other words, I took the quaaludes on purpose, I slept with him, but now I'm going to say he raped me. And so I wrote this thing on Tommy Chung because I was actually in a bed on a set under a cover with him. And so I said, hey, did this actually happen to me? And I wrote it in 5 minutes. And the point was, Tommy Chung never touched me. The point was, I could make up a story. And I immediately got a contact from one of my television lawyers, one of the top lawyers in the United States, who said he wanted to represent me against Tommy Chung. And I'm like, Tommy didn't do anything. That was a made-up story. So I had to go back and put in a disclaimer. I'm like, geez, you bought that? So I just wanted to show there's two sides of things happening, and you have to be aware of that. So I've been in Hollywood. I failed in Hollywood. I didn't sleep with anybody in Hollywood, and I wasn't particularly talented either. So, but I turned down the casting couch, which did exist, and it's something that needs to go away because it's very, very immoral. But it is there, and women over the age of the age where they can consent choose to prostitute themselves in order to get work, and it's sad, but it is apparently not illegal. So unless I make it illegal, the guys who do it, even if they're scumbags, aren't committing a crime. So I just want to point that out. So I've been on television. I've been in Hollywood. I know what the casting couch is. I know that women can tell the truth. I know they can tell a lie. Now I want to point out one more thing, because we're going to be talking about women who are telling their stories. Their stories, a lot of these stories are not proven, but I want to point this out. All right. There are stories in this case which didn't. Jimmy Savile has never been convicted of a crime. He's never been convicted of a sexual assault of a woman. Does that mean it didn't happen? And the answer to that is no. We cannot say it did not happen. Now, there are people who say, well, then why didn't everybody come forth sooner? All right. And so there's a lot of reasons. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to talk about the women who actually did accuse him after his death, mind you. I'm going to talk about the police evidence. I'm going to talk about the women's stories that they told, and how, if I believed them or I didn't believe them. Because as I said, I don't believe a lot of the women in the Bill Cosby case at all. I think that they took the Quaaludes on purpose. They knew they were going to have sex with him, and they were like, okay, I'll get a little happy and high, and I can have sex with this dude, and then maybe I'll get to be in one of his pictures. Scummy as it is, I think the women were not necessarily raped. I don't think the proof was there. However, there's also times when women don't go forth with anything, and so we have to understand that there's reasons that they don't do this, and I'm going to point that out later. But I want to point out, just because I said I think I've been on every side of this situation. For me, the reason I know women don't always talk about these things is because, yes, I was sexually assaulted myself. I was sexually assaulted, I don't know how old I was, 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. I was in a fun house, one of those places of really dark Halloween-y houses. It was at one of these amusement parks. And I was with my friend. My friend was in front of me. We walked into this dark thing. You go through all the corridors like this, right? And you go, yeah. Somewhere in those corridors, all of a sudden I felt an arm come around me and grab me. And the guy's hand went up my skirt. And he did put his fingers inside me. And I remember freaking out. I remember breaking free, slamming into a wall, slamming into another wall as I was trying to escape this guy. And he grabbed me again, and he repeated that one more time. And then I remember escaping again, slamming into one more wall, and then, thankfully, the light was there of the exit, and I ran out the exit. My mother, I ran up toward my mother, and my mother looked at me, and she said, and I remember this, because my mother's not, can we say my mother wasn't an overly emotional person? She wasn't one of those, oh my God, dear, what's wrong? She wasn't like that. And she looked at me and she said, you're totally white in the face. What's wrong? So if my mother noticed that, I'm going to say I was really pale. And I looked at her and I said, nothing's wrong. And I walked away. I remember going home and sitting on the bed with my friend, the one who was also with me in the funhouse. And she said, how are you feeling? And I said, and now, mind you, I'm kind of an unusual person. Even when I was a teen, I was very logical, all right? Now, some of the women who have talked about Jimmy Savile have said how horrifyingly his behavior affected their lives. Even from one incident, that messed up their lives. Everyone is different. I've always been a very logical, analytical person. So what I said to my friend was, well, that experience sucked, but I don't feel like it had anything to do with me. Because if I had been in front of you, you would have been the unlucky schmuck that got molested. And that was the end of it. I went on with my life, and it never affected me at all. I mean, I remember it being a creepy, not a pleasant experience, but it didn't affect me. It didn't affect my attitude toward men. It really didn't affect me. Because I was able to logically say, it wasn't about me. Now, some people always think, it was about me. I did something wrong. I never thought that. But I never told my mother either, because it was embarrassing, and we weren't very good. We weren't the kind of family that talked about things like this at all. And also, of course, I didn't report it to the police, because what the hell were they going to do? It was a dark fun house. Nobody had a clue who the dude was. And I knew at the age of whatever I was, 11, 12, 13, that they weren't going to arrest anybody, because I couldn't identify the guy. So I was like, well, that sucked. Put it to bed, So those are my experiences. Television, Hollywood, and sexual assault. So I just want you to know that. So when I'm going into explaining these things, I can explain them as clearly as possible. So anyway, that's just my forward comments on that. All right, now, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Florence says, Pat wrote a book on how to raise your daughter. That's excellent. I'm sorry that happened to you. I can empathize. A lot of people can. I mean, for me, at least, it was a very short and unpleasing experience, but short and done with. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, I think a lot of women in life have experienced things like, I do remember I was traveling across the U.S. and I went into a gas station and I walked into the gas station, paid for the gas. Those were in the days when you didn't have a credit card. Paid for the gas, and as I was walking out, I felt this hand go on my boob, and I walked through the door. And so some guy just put his hand on my boob as I left. And I remember the burning feeling. Like, I got in my car and I was like, I drove away, but I could feel like his hand like burning. And I was so pissed that he did that. So, and I've had a few other, what I would call milder experiences. Like, for example, when you're in television, in Hollywood, kissing is not that unusual. And I want to keep this in mind when you're talking about a lot of the Jimmy Savile stuff, that kissing, and even kissing, is not that rare. Hands on the bum is not that rare. Hand on a leg, up a skirt, maybe just up a skirt and no further, is not that rare. There's a lot of sleazy-ish behavior that is accepted especially among stars, that they're just laughing and joking and, hey, love ya, girl. Oh, you got a nice butt. That kind of stuff goes on. Is it proper? No. Does it go on? Yes. And so this is just something to just clear you up on how things kind of work. And I'm going to get into further about what the evidence actually shows he actually did. Okay, so let me now go to, I just want to put that in there because, a lot of times when people talk about things, they're coming from a place where they have no knowledge, and I personally feel like I do have knowledge. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, okay, I'm trying to think of what I'm looking at here. Okay. I want to point this out too, so we're going to talk about this. When my Mark Williams Thomas, not my favorite guy, but a reasonably decent documentary, said, How I Caught Britain's Most Infamous Pedophile. And I'm an American, so I say pedophile, but because I'm doing a show about UK, I'm going to try to do it properly there. Pedophile. If you look all over the net, it says pedophile, 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 constantly. Now, I will get into whether he is a pedophile or not, all right? But everybody who commits sexual assault of people under the age of 18 are not, or under the age of 16, because I think at the time, 16 was the time of consent, or the level of consent there, age of consent, doesn't mean you're a pedophile. And I think, I get it why people want to say that, but I'm also I think having accuracy is important. It's important for investigations. It's important for understanding. So there's a difference, and I want to point this out. And we can analyze later whether there's evidence supporting this, pedophilia, or a thing called, I don't even know how to pronounce it, hebophilia. All right, what the hell is that, hebophilia? Because actually, it's a very weird word that almost nobody has ever heard about. And I want to point this out. It says, and sexual offending against children. Now, one issue we have in a lot of these shows, or documentaries, or accusations, is who do we consider a child? By the law or by our own personal feelings? Now, for me, I have 3 children. They're always my children. Don't mess with my children. Although they're pretty much, you don't want to mess with my children. They will take care of you. But when my children were 18 and under, they were still children to me. So if you mess with my 17-year-old daughter, you are committing an offense against a child. However, that is not necessarily the law. If the law says the age of consent is 16, then they're basically saying 16 and above, they're not really, quote, children. You can argue that point. I don't have a problem with whether we should change that whole damn thing. But definitions are important. So let me tell you what the definition is of these two things, because they are different. Let me find it. What did I do with it? Damn it. Hold on a second. I put it here purposely so I could find it again. Of course I did. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. Pedophilia relates to a specific disorder where there is a preference for sexual activity with a prepubescent child or children. There's the word that's important, prepubescent. Therefore, it would not usually be the correct description for someone with a sexual preference And again, sexual preference, because just because, if you mistake the age of a child, or don't at that moment, just sort of don't care because they look older. And I say this again with some experience, because I had a 12-year-old foster child, a pregnant 12-year-old foster child. Good God, she looked like she was 18. She had boobs like you wouldn't believe. And she had gotten pregnant by a 37-year-old felon. So, consequently, the question always was, did he even know she was 12? I mean, she may have acted 12, but you could just think she was an immature 16 or 17 or 18-year-old, because she did look a lot older. So that can be a problem. But the preference, the question is the preference. The difference would be, if you want an older person, they're going to have like boobs and things. And then you have your younger ones who clearly have not even reached that age of puberty. So a pedophile, say that right? A pedophile would be someone who likes children, okay? Now, the term pedophilia should not be used to describe young people under the age of 16 who have a sexual preference for younger children. That's an interesting one. In other words, if you're a 15-year-old boy and you're hot for a 13-year-old girl, you're not a pedophile, okay? If you're if you're a 12-year-old boy and you're hot for a 9-year-old, they're saying you're not a pedophile. I'm not sure I agree with that, but okay. All right. But the actual criteria is that the person with the disorder is at least 16 years old and at least 5 years older than the child or children who are the focus of their sexual preference. I think that's a little bit, that's concerning. I think that needs to change. So in other words, a 12-year-old boy who has sex with a 7-year-old is, okay, I'm not going to go there. But anyway, basically, a pedophile is someone who likes prepubescent children. Hebophilia, if that's the way you pronounce it, it may be hebophilia, I don't know, is a term used to describe a preferential sexual interest in pubescent, early adolescent individuals rather than adult partners. Okay, that is the point. It's a preferential sexual interest in adolescent individuals, usually mid-late teens. Okay, so the question will be, as we go through this, if Jimmy Savile was guilty of sexual assault of numerous people, did he have hebophilia, or I don't know if you call him a hemophiliac. What do you call him? Anyway, that he liked teen girls, not 18-year-old girls, but preferably he kind of liked them a little bit less grown up, So 13, 14, 15, 16, that's the question. That means he is not a pedophile, okay? He is I guess it's a hebophile. I don't see the word here. He would be that, not a pedophile. If he's particularly choosing very young children, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, babies, horrible as that is, that's a pedophile, okay? That is a true pedophile. And I think the distinction is important, not because it takes away from a person's guilt, but we should just stop. We should not say things that are not true, because it takes away from our own ability to be proper with our analysis and our accusations. We can still make our accusations, but let's make them based on real evidence and not things that aren't true. Okay, so that's my thing on that. Now we're gonna. We'll find out. Do we find evidence that he's a pedophile or whatever this is, a hemophile? Okay, which one is he? All right. So, anyway, let me tell you who Jimmy Savile is, in case you have absolutely no clue whatsoever. All right. So I can take you through something basic on his life. All right. So anyway, he was born in 1926. He was an English DJ and television and radio personality who hosted BBC shows, including Top of the Pops and Jim'll Fix It. He raised an estimated £40 million for charities during his lifetime. Savile was widely praised for his personal qualities and as a fundraiser. After his death, hundreds of allegations of sexual abuse were made against him, leading the police to conclude that he had been a predatory sexual offender and possibly one of Britain's most prolific. There had been allegations during his lifetime, but they were dismissed and accusers ignored or disbelieved. All right. As a teenager during the Second World War, he worked in coal mines and had some spinal injuries. Then he began a career as a DJ playing records. Now, some people here will say, oh, I thought the guy was hideous and ugly. I'm going to say when he was fairly young, he was not an unattractive man. He really was not. And that's to his advantage. Later on in life, he got more and more crazy with his hair and his looks, and his teeth got worse. We all go that way, actually. So he was trying to take what he used to be a very good-looking young man. He tried to then change into something that was a personality that people would like, in spite of the fact he wasn't as good-looking as he used to be. He's a smart guy. The guy's not lacking in smartness. So then he started playing in dance halls, and this was when, I believe it was 50. Was that the 50s? It became very popular. Dance halls, and somebody pointed out that this was a cultural change where before younger girls, it was about the adult culture, and now it was a youth culture, and people were getting out there in cute little skirts and dancing around, and he took advantage of that because now you had girls with more freedom and more availability. So don't misunderstand. I don't have a problem with women having freedom, but with freedom comes risk and predators. So anyway. So then he also became a professional wrestler, and then he was a disc jockey on Radio Luxembourg in 1958, and he developed a reputation for eccentricity and flamboyance. And then at the BBC, he did the Top of the Pops, which was just something new where you just, you just start presenting songs and famous people. And by that time, look at this. I mean, look at him here. Oops, that's not what I'm looking for. Wrong one. Where the hell is the one I wanted to put up? Okay, hold on a second. Where'd it go? Oh, it's so annoying when things disappear. Hold on one second. Maybe I have it elsewhere. Let me see if I have it over here. Seriously, no. Anyway, I had a picture of him with the Beatles. And, he's with the Beatles. He's with all these super, super famous people in music. So he's Top of the Pops. And then he did Jim'll Fix It. And that particular show, which he's, I think, most famous for, and put him, this is where I think a lot of the pedophilia stuff comes from. So he did this Jim'll Fix It for me. He did this show where children would give like their dream. I wish this could happen, and he would make it happen. And some of the kids' wishes were so he couldn't possibly pull this off. He did pull it off. He was like a magician. He truly was. He had an incredible brain, incredible creativity, and I think he's this guy. What do you think, guys? Do you think he's this guy? Because I personally think that's the guy he is. Can anybody tell me who he is? We should know who he is, of course. But let me point out this. Florence says, the English appreciate a funny eccentric. It's an acceptable type in their culture. And he was quite a funny eccentric in many ways. And I think that when he presented himself on television, he was brilliant. He was quick-witted. He was yeah, there we go. Willy Wonka. Joe says, I'll never look at Willy Wonka the same way again. Yep, Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka. Hi, Doreen. Willy Wonka. All right. Now, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory it's kind of a creepy story about a man who is sort of a little bit autistic and like separate from society and has these issues, and he develops this factory, and then he brings children there, and he's kind of sadistic too. There's always a favorite line in that film where Wonka says to this kid, "Oh, don't touch that," or something like that, and he's like doing it so lackadaisical, like, "Yeah, don't touch that," hoping he will because he hates the kid. And it's super creepy. But he's able to the kids all have these wishes to have all the chocolate in the world and have all the candies, and he's like playing into that because they want it. He's going to give it to them. He's this incredible magician. And by the way, This was also, the show was also done, Willy Wonka movie was also done with Johnny Depp, and there's also supposed to be one coming out in 2022, and I'm going to say, go to hell, all of you. This is the only Willy Wonka. I'm sorry, but Gene Wilder nailed it. Stop making movies. Gene Wilder did it right. He's the perfect Willy Wonka. He's creepy as hell. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. I'm totally in love with Willy Wonka's extremely creepy handling of Willy Wonka. Just absolutely love it. Anyway, Gene Wilder. Do that version. Anyway, so I think that Jimmy Savile thought of himself as a Willy Wonka. It came out the same about time he started doing all these things. Yeah, Oompa Loompa. Yes, this is true, Joe. Roald Dahl specialized in dark children's tales and fables, hence Willy Wonka and other creepy characters. He was even better in Women in Red. Hey, he was great in Blazing Saddles. He was great in Young Frankenstein. I'm a big fan of Gene Wilder. Anyway, yes, this is true. He stayed true to the wonderful work of Roald Dahl. He's the best. All right, everybody agrees with me. You can stay as you can stay in the chat room. Okay, anyway, I think that Jimmy Savile thought of himself as this guy, the good side. So he could do magic, and he almost really could. And he did these things. He did incredible things to make children happy. And so he did accomplish that. And then the other thing he accomplished during his lifetime, which there's two sides to this, by the way. He supported a lot of incredible, lot of institutions. He comes from Leeds. He has supported the hospital there. This over here, Duncroft was if I screw this up, there's just so many names, I'm forgetting them. Duncroft, I think was the girls' institution, like basically juvenile delinquents by the court were sent there for psychiatric and rehabilitation. Basically, troubled girls. And we got Broadmoor, which one was that? Was that the mental institution? So anyway, he did hospitals. He did mental institutions. He did girls' schools. He gave a tremendous amount of money. Look at that. This is for the Stoke Manville Hospital Trust. Look at the money he's giving. He spent a lot of time of his life, tremendous effort, into raising money for all these institutions. He did a lot of good. Okay? Now, having done a lot of good, he also got a lot of praise. He also got a lot of support. The BBC loved him because he made them a whole ton of money, right? Because he had his shows there. And we see here he's got friends in all the right places, right? Prince Charles, Margaret Thatcher, up to royalty. He gets an OBE and he gets knighted. I mean, this is incredible. This was like to him, the cat's meow. He'd reached the top of the mountain. He had achieved in his life being the most incredible guy ever. He not only provided entertainment, he supported tons of charities, and royalty loved him, and the government loved him. All right. So that's where he was until he croaked. Then he croaked. And there were masses of people saying nothing but nice things about him. BBC did a whole show, on how all the things he'd done and everything was hunky-dory. However, the rumors persisted, and there were rumors, but the rumors were, some of them you could believe, some of them you couldn't, some of them are, when people tell rumors, a lot of times they take what could be credible and make it so incredible, they're like, yeah, never mind. And also rumors, you don't jump on rumors necessarily because you don't want to trash somebody's reputation. You don't want to destroy their career. You don't want to destroy your own career. You don't want to go someplace where there's no proof and no evidence. So a lot of times rumors, especially in an industry, which is full of people who, let's face it, let's be realistic here. Jimmy Savile was in the industry for over half a century. He was a very public guy. He was here, he was there, he was here, he was there, he was here, he was there. He was every frickin' where. He met so many people if one person came forth, one girl says, he touched my butt. Really? Are you going to take the guy down because he touched her bum? I mean, you don't know that he did. And even if he did, because he might have been walking by her in a crowd and accidentally touched her, or he might have actually really done it. But do you take a guy down and do you destroy the BBC and do you do that? And the answer to that is probably not. Okay. And there's a lot of questions about royalty involved in this. And there gets to be a whole pile of conspiracy theories about how the government and royalty were protecting Jimmy Savile. And I don't buy this for a minute. I think they're not involved with Jimmy Savile on a regular basis. What they see is what the media is presenting. What they see is the money he's doing, he's giving. They see the charities he's supporting. That's what they see. They don't see anything else. And by the way, say what you will, he apparently was fun to be around to some extent, depending on who you were. So that Margaret Thatcher I think that is Margaret Thatcher, right? Again, I'm an American. They found his company fun. He had good quips. He had a sense of humor. He was clever. So they didn't mind being around him for a short period of time, especially when he didn't touch them on the bum. You know what I mean? And didn't put them in the back room. So they probably had no idea. And people say, oh, well, they must have found out somehow. The answer to that is no, unless somebody from the whole bunch of people from the BBC told him, or from the hospitals, or from any other places he supported, all went running to. Do you think they went running to royalty to say, hey, Prince Charles, that dude's creepy? That's not happening. So they're living in normal people on this plane, Savile's on this plane, royalty is up on this plane. They're so busy doing stuff, they're not going to see what's happening below them. So all they saw was he was a huge media hit for decades. He gave tons of money, supported charities. They thought he was great. They gave him awards. And he loved it. Okay, so that's that picture. All right. So now the question is, what happened after he croaked? Now he croaked. All right, so now there's this big fat funeral, and oh my God, people are crying on the streets and throwing flowers and all that kind of stuff. And he got a hero's funeral. Then, as I pointed out, the media is like, he's dead, he's not helping us out any longer. Let's go after these rumors. So they brought in my not so favorite person, and decided to do a television show. They did that, and they came up with. There are people the women that came forward said things that were concerning, that they thought were believable. So they made a show out of it. Now, some of those I found relatively credible. And I'm just going to say, I'm like, with Netflix, I really wasn't impressed. But here now I'm on the fence, It's like, yeah, maybe that guy's a sleazebag. Maybe he's a predator, These women didn't report this, but now they're saying this, and the stories seem credible. Okay, so what happened after that was, the ITV documentary, almost a year after his death, in 2012, they examined claims of sexual abuse by Savile. No, they didn't. As soon as he kicked, this guy and ITV got together and spent the year putting this show together because it was going to make money. This led to extensive media coverage and a substantial and rapidly growing body of witness statements. Now, okay, I got to stop here. Here is another problem we run into when you're talking about credibility. Once you go public, you get 2 or 3 people, go public and say, this is what he did to me. Then what you get are attention seekers. So you have 2 groups. You have women or people who might come forward with, hey, he did this to me too, and it's actually true. And then you get another group that's like, hey, I can get attention. I can get attention from my husband. I can get attention from my friends. I can get attention from TV. I might even get on TV since I already know what what Savile supposedly did to women. I'll just make up a similar story. Yes, I will. Okay, you have to be careful of that. And this is why I point out evidence. There has to be rational evidence, reasonable evidence that supports that it is valid, not just a whole bunch of attention seekers and money seekers, because eventually also there became an issue of compensating all these victims, and so money became an issue. So when they say he assaulted hundreds and hundreds of people of everything from age, I think they're down to age 8 all the way up to, whatever age they're up to, his mother's age, which, Savile did seem to adore his mother. It's like, how many of these people are there for the money, and how many people are telling the truth? And this is tricky. So you just can't get drawn into it. You got to take your emotions and put them aside and say, it could be either. Okay, so this is what happened then. So after then what happened was Scotland Yard launched an investigation. All right. Against public bodies for covering up or failure of duty, because we had all these hospitals and the girls' school and the BBC. What did they know, and what were they covering up? So they looked into the allegations of child sex abuse by Savile spanning 6 decades, describing him as a predatory sex offender, and later stated they were pursuing more than 400 lines of inquiry based on the testimony of 300 potential victims via 14 police forces across the UK. All right, so this goes on, and there's all kinds of things involved here. Now, in June 2014, the investigations included 28 NHS hospitals, Leeds General Infirmary, Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, and concluded that he had assaulted staff and patients between 5 and 75 over several decades. All right, now I want to present something called evidence. All right, so let me present some evidence here. What happened after this show? Oh, just by the way, I do want to point this out too. One of the reasons I'm always a little skeptical of media, like which one of these media shows has truth in it, is because I have experienced libel by the media, and this is from the Daily Mail. U.S. crime expert told TV documentary Madeleine McCann's body parents may have hidden her plans to sue the program for purposely destroying her reputation. This was the Australian Sunday night show with Ronnie Sadler. They libeled the hell out of me. They edited me to the point where they, as I pointed out here, they annihilated me. Then they did. They tried to destroy my reputation, and they did that. I did try to sue them, but unfortunately, Australia doesn't allow you to sue unless you lost money in Australia. So they purposely, I think, picked me because I don't do a lot of Australian work. So it didn't matter if my reputation were ruined everywhere else in the world and I lost money. Legally, I couldn't do crap. So I did have my lawyer go after them, and I did get the newspaper articles, and Ronnie Sadler did end up leaving Sunday night, so maybe I did some good. But then you turn around a little later, and the Sun went ahead and libeled me. And so now we have an apology to criminal profiler Pat Brown. And believe me, I had to fight for that damn apology. I had to go through there's a whole rigorous thing. You have to cite your evidence, and it goes through this whole this system of where they're trying to do oversight of the tabloids, and I had to fight like a dog to get that lousy apology, which was not published in a paper, but on someplace on the internet. Prince Charles had to do the same thing. So I don't necessarily trust the media. I've been in the media. I know what they'll do for agenda, for money. I know how they'll protect people as well. So I say, again, both sides. Okay, so now the media has come out with these accusations. So now they're doing an inspection of the accusations. And this is a review into allegations and intelligence material concerning Jimmy Savile between 1964 and 2012, 60 years. And they said mistakes were made. Okay, fine. All right, so now what did they do? Look, let's see. Up at the top, it says, by a letter dated 7 November 2012, the Home Secretary formally commissioned Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary to conduct a review to assess the police knowledge of and response to the historical allegations made against the late Sir Jimmy Savile and related individuals. Okay, so now they're going to look at historically. They're going to go back and see, were there lots of reports to police departments that they ignored because it was Jimmy Savile? Here's what they came up with, which I thought was kind of fascinating. All right. In total, we have considered 7 incidents. 7 incidents. 2 were based solely on intelligence records, and I don't even know what that means, and 5 based on complaints by Savile's victims, which I thought right there was that's incorrect. So I don't understand how you can write something incorrectly. You can't say Savile's victims when you don't know that they were victims. This is an investigation. They're incidents. They're not proven. So it's not proven that they were Savile's victims. So to put this in a report tells me this report's crap to begin with. God bless, you know. Okay. Anyway, here we have the 5. An entry on an intelligence ledger. Okay. A computerized record of an anonymous letter. I'm going to point out the anonymous letter in a minute. A complaint of a victim who said he indecently assaulted her. 3 victims who said he indecently assaulted them. And some of them just said he touched their bum, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's what they got. 60 years. So they got 7 pieces of information. That's like 1 per decade. I mean, if you're a huge star and you're in the public constantly and you're at all these institutions and you get 1 complaint per year, that's not a lot to work with. You know what I mean? It's not a lot to work with. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean there aren't hundreds of other incidents that happen. It just means that the police had trouble because they didn't have much to go on. Now, let me show you this letter. There's a law made of this letter that if only the police had followed through on this letter, they could have stopped Savile in his tracks. Okay, this is what the letter said. This was received in 1998, and it was anonymous. And anonymous is the point, what the problem is. And he basically says, I supply here information, which if looked into by one of your officers, will yield a secret not unlike that of, and they're taking some of this out. Anyway, basically, it says, Jimmy Savile is buggering little boys. It's an anonymous letter. Jimmy Savile is a huge television personality. Do you know how many things people have said about me that aren't true? Tons of things. I mean, if I believed all the things they wrote about me, I'd just crawl away and shoot myself in the head. You know what I mean? I mean, I'd be a horrible, horrible human being. So the police get an anonymous letter about him buggering boys. And it's like, how many of these kind of things have we seen about celebrities? We've seen a ton of these. What are they going to do? They're going to go out on every anonymous letter and go say, hey, did you do that? Are they going to run around the neighborhood and say, were you buggered by Savile? They can't do that. That's ridiculous. So no, they couldn't have stopped him from this letter. That's nonsense. So what happened is that for all these years of his life, there were so few complaints against a major celebrity that there was nothing for the police to do until after he died and all this fountain of complaints came out. And then the question is, when you're looking at these now that he's dead and he can't defend himself, are they true? All right, so from the show I preferred, I'm gonna present 3 women, because there's quite a few women in each one of these shows, and I'm going to present these 3 women, and I'm going to tell you why I'm picking them. All right, the first woman is this woman. All right. She claims that she was on a train with him, and he ended up in her compartment, and then he chatted with her and talked with her, and then he touched her leg, and then she said, my God, I realized he was masturbating, and it really blew her mind. Okay? That's what she said happened. Now, this one is more interesting, because this is this woman when she was a young woman. I believe she said she was about 15. This is Savile. Now we have a picture of them together hugging, and this behind is the caravan. Now he had a Rolls Royce. He used to take a few girls out for rides, and then he had this caravan, which basically was a great place to bring girls into it, because there's a bed there, and then there's a little kitchen and dinette, and there's chair, and there's a bed. Very handy for messing around with girls. She said she went with a friend, and they were both in there, and then he started talking. Then he changed, just like that, and he started putting his hands on her, pulled her pants down, and supposedly forced her into fellatio. She had to give him oral sex, and she was so shocked she didn't know what to do. She was appalled. She started crying, and then apparently got mad at her, and then shut both of them out and said, you can't tell anybody, because if you do, no one will believe you. Okay. So now we have, there are other incidents over at BBC where they're saying that the girls that were on the show with him, because there were a lot of girls on those shows, right? And they were supposedly, they were under 18. Some of them were 17, some were 16, some were 15, some were 14. Supposedly he brought them into his like little dressing room area. And one woman says in one of the shows that she came in and saw the girl sitting on his knee, and he had his hand up her up her skirt, and he was kissing her, and he saw his tongue come out of her mouth. Now, that's the mildest. There's a lot of incidents where he supposedly is like just cuddling up to girls, or touching, or putting his hand on their leg, or kissing them, and maybe being a little fresh with the kiss. A lot of that, which isn't proper, but isn't necessarily, at least in those days, considered a major sexual assault of any sort. It's just creepy. But then we have the train thing, which is creepier. All right. Then we have now oral sex. Then we have this woman. She worked at one of the hospitals. She was 17 at the time, and she said that she worked with him for quite a while and nothing happened. And then one day he said, well, come over to my room, because he had a room at the hospital. They gave him one so that he could, I don't know, molest other people. But no, they gave him a room, like he was around a lot and helpful and doing charity. So they just gave him a room. And she went into the room and she took this picture of him in a bathtub. And then she has the picture, and you can see she's hung around. She has a picture of him in the bathtub. And afterwards, he wasn't undressed, by the way. He's just sitting there in his clothes, holding up something, going, hey, being silly. And then after that, she said he pushed her onto the bed, started kissing her, then raped her, and then afterwards said, that's not so bad, was it? Okay, so now we're going from touching the leg to that kind of kiss, the bum things, touching bums, to oral sex, to rape. She said that he wore a shirt at that time, and on the shirt it said sex teacher, and I just want to point this out, because that shirt, I don't know if I remember to get a picture of it. I don't think I did. It says sex instructor. And one thing I know from dealing with perverts, especially perverts who like teenage girls, and I did a thing online with a pervert once, and I was trying to link him to certain things, and I presented myself as a 14-year-old, and he did all kinds of perverted things to me online, told me to do things to myself, and he called himself a sex instructor. And this is something very, try to understand this. What happens in the mind of a person who is essentially a pervert, who, and I do believe, people say, is he a psychopath or isn't he? I would say for him to be able to do what I believe he did do for so long, yes, he did exhibit psychopathy. Almost like a Jekyll and Hyde. His part of his psychopathy was to be the best of everything. And the other part was to do whatever he wanted. And he once said on one of the shows that I thought this was kind of interesting. He said, when I get up to heaven, there's going to be these two lists, the bad list and the good list. And they're going to look at the bad list and go, you did these things. Well, yeah, but look at my good list. It's way longer. So, give me a break. And in his own mind, he could do that. That all his good would erase his little naughty escapades. But along with this, it's very important to understand that, especially with teenage girls, to present yourself as an instructor of sex means that you're just bringing them into something. They're going to be involved in this anyway. You know what I mean? Maybe they're already involved, but you're an adult. You can teach them. They love the word teach. I'm going to teach you how to have sex. I'm going to teach you how to do a blowjob. I'm going to teach you how to this and that. And by saying you're a teacher, somehow it takes away that you're just doing this for your own personal enjoyment. And that she didn't actually agree to it, because she's the pupil, so she should just do what the teacher says. But hey, it's going to turn out okay for you, because you're going to learn from this, and it's not going to be so bad next time you do it. It'll all work out, you see? And I thought that shirt was so representative of what I think Jimmy Savile was. There are many, many other stories, and I listened to them, and I would say this, having experienced a little of what I've experienced, and having experienced what I've seen in courts where women, I personally believe, are lying like dogs about, oh yeah, he made me do this, when he didn't. when you took the Quaaludes because you knew you were going, you were going to have sex with him and you wanted to end up in a movie. And then you saw him over and over again. Now, some of these girls did see him over and over again, even after that. Not this girl. She ran away. But there were some girls, a couple of the girls at the youth reformatory school, he had supposedly had sex with them, and they saw him for the next 5 years. But you're already talking about girls with issues. You're talking about girls who are already having problems in society, may have already had sex, may have already committed crimes, and may have seen it still being around him, even if they had to do some not so thrilling things. And apparently he's a pretty crappy lover. So, they were just willing to do whatever it gets. And he was quick, supposedly. Like, he got it over with like in 5 minutes. And some part of me wonders how small he was built, because a lot of the girls, they didn't complain about a lot of pain. They didn't complain about, even virgin girls didn't seem to complain about pain. So I'm like, I'd like to know how big was he? Because if he was this little, they might not even known he did it. Or if he did it, it was like, So some of those women, girls, hung in until they were in their 20s, until then he dumped them because they were too old. But because he was still a celebrity and they still got something out of it, so that at some point, once it's already done, you might just start, in a sense, prostitute yourself for whatever you're going to get. There were hundreds of complaints, and I looked at the different complaints, and what I come up with is this. I absolutely believe that he did sexually assault young women, well, shall I say, older teenagers. I believe that he often asked their age, and I think he did that to try to protect himself. If they were 16, or if they claimed they were 16, hey, done deal. He wouldn't, that could be consensual. I do think he may have messed around with 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, especially the ones who looked older, or maybe just didn't bother to ask what age they were, which makes him not a pedophile, okay? He's not a pedophile. He's that other one that I pointed out. Let me pull it up again so you know what it is. It is this one, the hebophile. He's a hebophile. He likes young teenage girls that are actually beginning to be women. He said when one of the newscasters asked him, "Oh, you claim you don't like children. Why are you saying that?" He goes, "Because there's all these rumors around that I'm a pedophile, and it's just easier to say I don't like children because I don't want to be accused of that." But from what I see, even in his shows, he never did show any behaviors toward young children that creep me out. Toward the teenage girls, more so, but not toward the children. I do believe he had a line, and that he liked the girls that were just over that line of not being true children. They were not prepubescent. They were actually young teens. I believe he is a hebophile, not a pedophile. That doesn't make what he did okay. What I'm simply saying is stop saying things that you don't have evidence for. Now, there are claims that he did have sex with children who are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, but I have not seen one real supportive evidence of that. I don't know if that's just where things go berserko later on, that he's assaulting elderly ladies, he's assaulting little children, and he's assaulting boys, which I've never seen any real proof of. His type is young teens. That's what it is. It's young teens. That's where his interest is. The other stuff I don't believe. At least I don't have any proof of it. So I say stay with what the evidence supports. It does support he's a hebophile. There's enough a confirmation and stories that ring true, along with the pictures of him with them, that make me believe that the accusations of hebophilia are not untrue. I believe he had that split personality. He's not really a split personality, just the Jekyll Hyde thingy. The part of him which he considered the good side, he did really like supporting charities. He liked thinking he was doing good for children, for disabled people, that people with spinal problems, girls that weren't given a break. Even the Psychiatric Institute, he's like, hey, look, I'm kind of weird myself. These people, hey, they should be given some love too. But, and let me point out where some of that love did. I did not mention this, and I do want to mention this before I go, because Where is she? Where is she? Oh, okay, this one. She's the Broadmoor whistleblower. Her name is Naomi Stanley. She's a psychiatric nurse. She does claim, and this is important for as far as the institutions go, that he kind of was given a run of the place. And in that place there were wards with young women, teenage girls, who he took advantage of. And because of the massive amount of money coming into Broadmoor, they sort of wanted to look the other way. That, that they said, oh, come on, just just ignore that. The question, and people were saying things happened, but again, especially when you're talking about people who are psychopathic, which a lot of these people in psychiatric institutes are psychopathic, not just psychotic and crazy, but psychopathic. They lie a lot. So the administration can blow off complaints by saying, hey, they're probably just liars. Same thing with the girls' school. And a matter of fact, one time that was exactly what happened. The police refused to actually go after him because they're like, this will never hold up in court. These girls are already there because they're committing crimes and maybe, not believed because they make up stories to get people in trouble. And that is very true. Psychopathic girls can say their teacher assaulted them, their daddy assaulted them, the soccer coach assaulted them. That's not unusual. So they're like, we can't go forward with this because the girls will not be believed. Not saying it didn't happen, just can't say we can believe them. Same thing here. So she's saying that they had inklings, but probably they said we can't prove it, so we're just going to keep getting the money. BBC, supposedly lots of people said he was like the young girls. But again, how much do they see? How much do they actually know? How much could be proven? And my belief is that Jimmy Savile wasn't an idiot. He made sure that in the majority of the time, nobody actually saw what he did to the young girl, the young teens. He did that in his vehicle. He did that in the caravan. He did that in his dressing room. He did that in a hotel, wherever. He did it somewhere where nobody could see and it couldn't be proven. He's not an idiot. So the people around him may have inklings, but they don't have proof. And when you don't have proof, a lot of times you just say, okay, I'm not going to get involved because I don't know. I mean, I've heard stuff, but I don't know how much of it is true, so I'll let it go. I mean, if it really happened, they should report it to the police. Are they sometimes looking the other way because it benefits them? Well, yes, I believe that's true. I don't think royalty was involved in any of this. I really think they just saw the outside Jimmy Savile. I think the BBC and the hospitals, and some of them may have heard little things, but then either toss them off because, well, he's wonderful, he's fun, he makes the patient so happy. Some girl said he touched her. I doubt that's true. And then he brings a lot of money into our hospital, and it's helping so many people. I don't think we should just destroy our entire hospital over one girl saying that he touched her boobs while she was lying in bed. You see, that's how it works. So he knows what he can get away with. And he probably played the game very, very well. Apparently well enough to get to 82 years old. I believe he was 82 when he died, and never be charged with anything. He was able to live his life exactly as he pleased. He had the sexual pleasures that he wanted, and now with his death, I'll give the media credit for this. I do think they did come up with something which had a lot of validity and truth to it. So it's Jimmy Savile wasn't as. He wasn't as wonderful as people thought he was. I will say this too, though. One thing we have to do, I think, is important, because this happens a lot when we find out a great artist, a great musician, a great entertainer, or whatever, is kind of a sleazy bastard, and we go, oh my God, we have to hate everything they do. We can never see their movies again. We can never listen to their music again. At some point, I think, the world is full of a lot of people who do great things, who are not necessarily decent people in other ways, and are sometimes totally psychopathic. And you can look at the situation and say, I know what he was, and that was all awful. But there were some things that I don't have to throw away because you can love. I've had some artists which I love, and I know what they were really creepy dudes. I'm like, but I love that piece of art, man. They could paint, and I can love the art without loving the guy who made it. So, okay, I'm going to go to your comments now because there must be thousands of them here. All right. Okay, let's see. Joe says, I think he probably assaulted pubescent girls, not just older teenagers. But not I can't even say it, not pre-pubescent. Many of the claims by women who were younger alleged victims appeared similar. Actual evidence, I'm no legal eagle. Yes, no, this is true. But pre-pubescent means, before they've had their periods, before their boobs are out there, you're talking about flat-chested and children. But I can't even say it, pubescent girls are ones who are becoming women. They exhibit that change of body, but it's just the beginning change. I think he got this thrill out of the fresh, virginal, childlike but womanish prepubescent teenager. That is though different than a child. Okay, totally. Let me go back to our just make sure I got this right with before I screw up saying it. Okay. Underage teenagers. Hebephilia is the term used to describe a preferential sexual interest in pubescent. I'm sorry, not prepubescent. Pubescent, early adolescence. I just said that wrong. So prepubescent is pedophilia, but pubescent means early adolescence, which could be 12, which could be 13, which could be 14. So I think that he definitely liked that group, okay? And it's wrong. It's illegal, by the way, because that is not a legal age for consent. So now I do think he tried to target 16-year-olds, probably really young-looking 16-year-olds, so that he would avoid the legal issues. But I'm also going to say that it seems that his desires overcame some of that carefulness about making sure they were 16, and he probably slid into 15, 14, 13, where he thought he couldn't get caught. So I still love Michael Jackson's music. I agree with you. Okay. By the way, I'm going to do a thing on Michael Jackson at some point because I have been asked to do that too. Yeah, art should never be confused with its creator. I still love Gary Glitter's songs. Kevin Spacey is a great actor. That is true. I could go on. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people get involved in, like, especially with movies and television. There's a high ego invested in that, and so some of them are highly narcissistic. Some of them are psychopathic. So they have the ability to put all this effort into this field where they become the star, and they love the attention, so they work hard for the attention. But it doesn't mean that they don't have other issues, but it doesn't mean they're not good at what they do. That's the way it is. Oh, I want to mention this. What about his trips to the mortuary? Okay, here's where I say, let's stop with the we don't know and we're overdoing things. Okay, this is where you get the rabbit hole stuff. Supposedly, there are claims he had sex with corpses. Okay? Now, first of all, again, he was into young teens. That seems to be proven. Not legally, but proven by all the women speaking up, girls speaking up. They're women now, but they were girls then. I think that he liked to do anything that was weird and unusual, in the sense that just because he could, because he was curious. He liked being around he's got pictures of him being around serial killers too. I mean, the guy likes to play, sort of walk on the dark side to some extent. And so he went to the morgue. There was no proof he ever had sex with anybody in the morgue. Would I put it past him if there was a young girl in the morgue he might not touch her? That he might not have sex with her. I can't put it past him. I just don't have evidence of it. And so I think when you start adding these things on, it's just we have to focus on what is more likely and is provable, rather than things that we have no actual clue. Yeah, we'll do that. He said, come on. I'm only beginning to learn about all the things he said. Let's see what else you have to say here. Let's see. Oh, The Sun is the most widely read paper in the UK right now. Yeah, it's funny because the Sun backed me up on one story and then libeled me on the next one. It's like you can't trust him. That's one of the problems is that I've worked for Discovery Channel. I did the Cleopatra show for Discovery. It turned out really good. That doesn't mean everything I've ever done for Discovery or for other channels is made me happy when I saw the results, because they're still in it for the money, and that is a lot of times the problem. This is probably true. Apparently, hundreds of people turned up at either his funeral or memorial with stories of how he just helped them. This is probably true. In other words, first of all, understand this. Even with serial killers, people say, well, he shoveled my driveway for me. Well, yeah, because serial killers don't kill every day. They might kill once a year. They might kill once every 2 or 3 years. They may go on a spree sometime, maybe if they've really fallen apart. But generally speaking, they don't kill that often. What do you think they do the other 364 days out of the year? They watch TV, they go to movies, they have sex with people who aren't dead, or they're not raping. They try to help their neighbor to be a good guy, because the serial killers love to present themselves as the good guy. Believe me, I helped this person. I did this for this person. They love to be the hero. So, yeah, that he would like to be, that Jimmy Savile wanted to be looked at as a hero, it's not a bit surprising. It's not. It's like, he can do all these good things, and it can make him feel good. And, and we can get into motives on a lot of things. Most people have more than one motive for doing anything. We might do something because we want to help somebody. But at the same hand, we're happy to get praise for it. I like doing the show because I like to bring out the evidence. I like to teach people about profiling. Then somebody will come in and say, you just like have people watching you. You just have a big fat ego. So do I like having you guys in the chat room? Do I enjoy people watching my show and commenting and talking to me? Of course I do. I do. But I try to balance it, and I try to be ethical. His problem was that the other side of him was really unbalancing him, and was very unethical and very immoral and very illegal. So there's a mix to that. But I'm sure he helped a lot of people. I'm sure he did. Let's see. Lisa says, I think one problem watching him at the time, it always seemed it was about him, glorifying himself and his image. Never felt any sincerity. And that might be true. People have very different viewpoints on that. But I will also say this, having worked in television, you have to present in certain ways, or you don't survive. So a lot of times what people think you're doing is only because the producers are making you do it. That you have to be bigger than life, that you have to bring things to yourself. You have to show personality, or they don't want you on their show. So that sometimes that's a little bit deceptive. I'm not saying it couldn't be true, but I'm also saying it's a little bit deceptive, having understood how that whole world works. Let's see what else we have here. Way off topic, but have you heard Sherry Papini's husband has filed for divorce? Yes, I have. Now, I'm hoping one of two things on that. If you don't know, Sherry Papini was the one that faked her kidnapping and finally has been caught and has confessed. And her husband, who's adult of the year, who supported her through everything, finally has filed for divorce. Now, there's a couple of possibilities. One is he finally grew a brain. He finally went, oh my God, all the time I've always supported her and believed everything she said. And even when I knew she did all these weird things and I still supported her. What an idiot I was. I finally realized that she is what she is. She's a horrible human being. She's a psychopath. And I want to protect my kids. I hope he's grown a brain. But I'm going to wait and see whether he's not doing this for legal reasons, or whether after she goes through her whatever she's going through, that they don't get back together again. We're just going to have to wait and see on that. I'm curious, because a lot of guys who are married to a woman who's got Munchausen syndrome by proxy, that she's a psychopath, that she can kill their children. She can even try to kill him, and a lot of times they just stay with him to the very bitter end. It's very bizarre, but that's true. Joe says, it's easier to view people as monsters if they've done vile things, but human nature is so much more complex. Bad people sometimes do good things and vice versa. That is true to an extent. I say we have 24 hours in a day, and there's only, and it doesn't, he apparently, for example, adored his mother, maybe excessively, but still, I saw a little thing with her and she seemed like a fun person. He was the last child. He got injured. She took care of him. He grew a very strong relationship with her, and he never appeared to get much of a relationship with anybody else. Although there's two women who say that they were long-term, girlfriends of his and didn't seem to know about each other. Go figure that. Let me point out this about pregnancy. One of the women says she got pregnant by him, and she knows that because she got an abortion, but because he didn't want kids, but she never told him. But anyway, she looked at the dates and figured out by the dates that he must be the father. And I'm thinking, if you got to check out the dates, you're having sex with a few people, too many. Maybe it is somebody else's kid. One of the things about him is, outside of that woman claiming it, and one other woman, he supposedly had sex with tons of girls and women and everybody else, and no one got pregnant. He claims he got a vasectomy early on because he never wanted children. And if he did that, I'll have to say that's quite brilliant, because that would eliminate the problem of him getting girls pregnant. And in his own mind, he might have thought, see, I'm not such a bad guy, because even though I am sort of raping these girls, I'm teaching them sex and they're never going to get pregnant either. I'm a good guy. So that may be part of it. Well, the dolt has grown balls. We're talking about Sherry Papini's husband, Keith. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We will. I don't know if his lawyer's behind it. He might have a lawyer saying, look, if you don't divorce her, they're going to charge you with he took money and he spent money, and they might charge him with that aspect. But if he gets a divorce, they won't charge him because it won't look like he was colluding with her. So I don't trust this yet, because adult of this level is usually adult forever. But we'll have to wait and see. But I hope so. I hope he finally grew a brain. I'm not even sure what came out with a cigar. What, a child? I don't understand that one. But I thank you, Martin, very much. Fascinating, fair, and balanced analysis, I think. I hope so. I hope, this is what I try to present on this show, trying to get people to understand that I say I'm taking all the emotion out of it. I don't even know who Jimmy Savile is, except for what I saw in the shows. I come to the conclusion I don't like a lot of his behaviors, and I do think they were crimes. And I do think if anybody reported them during his life and they could prove it, that guy should have been in prison. Because I think some of those girls were under 16 years old. Now, he could claim, I didn't know. I asked them if they were 16. They said yes. And this becomes an issue of fraud, because unless, if a girl says she's 16 and you have sex with her, then there's some liability on her side that she presented misinformation, allowing him to proceed with an act that he thought was legal. And that gets to be very complicated, and believe me, he has good lawyers probably, so he'd get away with that one. I think that the accusations are not unwarranted. That he was, I disagree with when they say, it's like the worst predator ever in all of Britain. That he did, pretty much he assaulted every single person from the age of baby to hundreds. You know what I mean? I think that's overdone. I think what he did was over 60 years, probably touched too many young teenage girls, probably had a little bit of a, what do they call, what's the word all the girls use? I forgot the word. What do you call it in England when somebody touches you a little bit too much? And he touched a few girls in an excessive way. And then some of the girls, I think he went further in sex acts with. But over 60 years, he's a celebrity. He's probably not quite as unusual as you think, sadly. I do think there needs to be more oversight in television, more oversight in any of these institutions, that he had access to teenage girls. But then there's also parents, and the parents come into play too. where are they? You know, why are they letting kids go off with him, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of people to pass around blame, but he is the number one person to blame. I just don't. I think that it's probably a little exaggerated, although it's terrible to begin with. So. What is that? Nothing provokes our dark humor like pedophilia. I don't know. I don't think I don't think any dark humor is coming out of that. You have to. Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking to see. Wait a minute. Let's see. Oh, was it Joe? Oh, I need to watch that Jimmy Savile, Those Who Knew documentary. Where did you see it? It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. So it's yeah. And I think that's the most rational one of them all, except for that one supposed relative of his who says he brought him to some place. He came to London, and he a couple guys came and spirited him off to this like psych club, and they had a bunch of little children, like 6, 7 years old. Everybody was having at it. I'm having trouble with that one. I'm not buying that one. I'm not buying that one at all. I just think that's, again, but where was it? I'm trying to find the other funny one here. Oh, that's what I was trying to find. Amber Heard can have Keith Papini. Oh, no, she's not going to, no, Keith is not. Keith doesn't have enough money and fame for her. That's not going to happen. You know, I cheer Amber Heard. I give her an honest appraisal of Johnny Depp's. I give her an honest appraisal of Johnny Depp's performance as Willy Wonka. Well, I can't give. I know I'm not a fan of Amber Heard, and I do think she's a massive narcissist, and she might be Munchausen syndrome, and she's got this child, and I'm worried about Munchausen syndrome by proxy with her. But she's creep. No, Oh, what is the word I'm thinking? I'm trying to no. I'm trying to think of the word for when they're having a little. They kept using it in all the documentaries, and it's not an American word. He's having a little. I think there's DDLE in it. So, not a cuddle. It wasn't a cuddle. Oh, what's it called? A fumble. Oh, a fumble. He's a little fumble there. You know. So in other words, his hands were where they shouldn't be. They're it's a little fumble. And a good portion of his stuff was that. And what he was probably doing, by the way, that's a grooming thing. You fumble a little, you kiss a little, and if the girl bolts from the room and never comes back, she's not the one. But if she puts up with it, and then she comes back and puts up with it again, now you got somebody. And you can keep doing that, and then you increase the sexual activities with her, and because she's not going to rat you out, and she's going to accept whatever you do. That's a grooming technique. So the fumbling thing, we have a little, a wobble cuddle. Oh, that's another one. Wobble cuddle, wobbly cuddle, sort of like that. Well, I call it groping, but I think they said a little fumble. I'm trying to remember now. I watched so many of these, I kind of lost it. But yeah, I call it groping. But it's like a pleasant little a nonce. A slang term for anyone who likes underage girls. All right, I'll agree with that's probably true. But yeah, some predators will choose to start with milder stuff first to see how well they're responded to, and also things that can't be proven as much. Because in theory, let's say you do have a 15-year-old virgin. She's supposed to be 16, but she's not. And you just touch her up a little bit. She's going to go home with no evidence. But let's assume you actually threw her down and physically raped her. She could be bleeding. She could have damage. Unless, as I say, I'm still curious whether he's like really small, and therefore the girls were like, I know he did it, but it didn't cause that much trouble. Just for you got people who still don't seem to know this truth. Some women are born with hymens, that's the covering over the vagina. Some women are not born with any at all. So bleeding is not always something that happens. And in some certain societies across the world, especially in years past, it used to be a thing where in certain like tribal areas that the guy would have sex with a woman, and then he or his mother would bring out a sheet with blood on it to prove that she was a virgin. And if the mother-in-law or he didn't come out with a bloody sheet, she could end up being executed or thrown out for being not a virgin. And it's really kind of scary because a lot of girls aren't born with hymens and they don't have them. So their first time with sex isn't painful. It might be even boring if the guy's small enough. She's like, oh, that's it? Because there isn't that, they don't have that reaction. So they might not have proof. But generally speaking, he would have to risk that. The younger the girl is and the more she might have a hymen, the more she might actually cause some kind of injury to her, bruising or bleeding. She could go home and theoretically say, Mom, he assaulted me. And the mother could look and see it. Now, apparently, hardly anybody ratted him out. So that's why I believe he did this grooming thing. He started with the smaller stuff, got to know them until the point where nobody would believe them. And then you say, oh, yeah, he did this to me. And they're like, well, you've been to his house. Like, how? Or you've been around him so long now. You're always in his dressing room. You're always in his, you're in the caravan. And now you say he attacked you? So then they don't believe you. So he's smart. He was a smart man. And he knew how to groom girls well enough and how to take his time with many of them so that they couldn't rat him out. Now the girl on the train, apparently he just sort of touched her and then masturbated. Well, she can't prove anything there either. So he knew exactly how far he could go with whom and under what circumstances. So, yeah. Really? I'm an American and had quite an embarrassing experience here in the UK when I learned that tits are birds. Really? I did not know that one. Oh, my tits are birds, really? Oh, okay. Well, I've gained some weight, so I've got owls now. Anyway, there is a Dame Professor Sue Black. I think she is a forensic anthropologist. One intelligent and straightforward woman, well known in British law enforcement circles. I'm not familiar with Sue Black. Interesting. I'm not familiar with her at all. Let's see what else we have here. I feel very American today. Yeah. U.S. Brits are confusing the Americans with our slang. Oh, that's a good one. A slap and a tickle behind the bike. Oh my God. A wobbly cuddle. Oh, so many. Oh, that's not interesting. Interfered with. Oh, okay. Isn't that interesting? I'll have to go back to the shows now. If I go back to the shows and figure out what it was, I think it was a fumble, but I'm not sure. I have to go back and look. But a number of the girls said that. A number of the women who were talking about when they were girls, they said that, sort of indicating that it wasn't a long. Hold on a second. Where am I at here? Hold on a second. Here we are. I think that to me the word meant that it was, when I said a fumble, if that's what the word was, that it was very quick. As a matter of fact, I say most of them said he was emotionless. He did not exhibit, there was no romance, there was no foreplay. In other words, he sucked as a lover because probably he wasn't interested in pleasing the person he was with. He wasn't. He was only interested in pleasing himself. But it seemed like it was all very, very quick. So, yeah, it's not, no. He wouldn't be on my date list. That's true. A spotted dick is a dessert, yeah. Oh my God, some of you have some terrible things to say. I'll probably get demonetized for all of this naughty talk, which, I kind of expect to be demonetized on this anyway, because apparently if you mention the word pedophilia, that's the end of your money right there. So a lot of the stuff I do, I know is going to get demonetized, but I do think there's still important cases to talk about so that people can learn from them, and I'm not going to shy away just because there's not going to be a financial gain on it. So that's, I have to take some good with the bad and some bad with the good. So there we go. So, but very interesting case. And, but, so I see where people are coming from who've gotten very emotional in the fact, especially if they really liked him. I mean, some of you say, well, he's too creepy from the beginning, but a lot of people really did enjoy his work. And he was a huge part of the culture for such a long time. And then you wake up one day and you find out he's kind of creepy, you know what I mean? And he's done things that you just think are repulsive, and that's a tricky thing to have to deal with. This is what happened with Bill Cosby in the U.S. Even though I have trouble with the issues of whether he was legally imprisoned or not, I still think it was a horn dog. I still think he used a casting couch. But Bill Cosby did a wonderful show for the family. He did a wonderful thing for African Americans to show, he was big in the business. He also pushed for black families, men in the home, men, and discipline with the kids. He said so many good things. He did so many good things. And then you find out that he's cheating on his wife and he's giving quaaludes to, Hollywood wannabes and having sex with them. And it's kind of sad and kind of disgusting. And you think, oh, crap, did you have to do that? You know what I mean? Did you have to do that? And it ruined his reputation, and it's tarnished all the good things he's done. I think the same thing is true here. The tarnishing is we all feel like we too have been assaulted when we see something we cared about or liked culturally tarnished by somebody, and then we're supposed to at that point hate them and everything they did, and we're supposed to throw out everything they've done, and it sucks. It really does suck. There we go. Just destroyed our childhood. Yeah, you look back and think, oh, crap. Well, this when I was a child, it was so cool. Now I have to dislike you. Bill Cosby was a great dad in his show, The Cosby Show, man. I looked up to him as a great dad, and now I found out he's a kind of a sleazy dude. You know what I mean? Just sucks. So, yeah. Let me see what else here. When I lived in America, I once asked for a rubber for the end of my pencil, and all I got was a look of sympathy. That is so true. That is so true. Yeah. Rubber here is definitely something sexual, and not an eraser. Oh my God. So, yes. But anyway, I hope you did like the show. I hope I brought some rational thought to this and an understanding of the evidence, what there is. Again, he has never been convicted of anything. Someone cannot say he's, guilty in a court of law, but I do believe in the court of public opinion he's quite guilty based on that. There's a substantial amount of evidence, and the evidence I'm talking about is not, again, useful in a legal sense, but enough that I could say as a profiler, I think enough evidence has been presented that convinces me that he did I want to get this term correct again. I can't say this word. It's just horrible. Pubescent girls. I don't believe that he spanned every single age and on both sexes. I do think that he liked young teens. I think that's where it stands. It was despicable behavior, and it hurt a lot of these teens. It hurt them tremendously, emotionally more than even physically, and some of them carried that into their adult lives. And pretty sad. Anyway, was his knighthood taken away? Yeah, well, it probably should be. And Gretchen says, completely off topic, what is Nancy Grace like? I did Nancy's show for years, and honest to God, I can't tell you. I'm out of Washington. She was out of Atlanta. I never once met her in person. I was on her show like 3 times a week, and she knew never to. Many people coming on her show would let her sort of humiliate them and insult them, and she'd attack them, and people noticed she never did that to me, and I said that's because I wouldn't allow it to happen. I come on your show, I'm going to tell it straight, and that's not happening. And she respected that, and so she did not do any of that stuff to me. So I had a good run with her show, but I actually have no clue what she's like because I've never met her in person. Weird, huh? So anyway, so thank you very much, everybody, for being here. You were absolutely great. Let's see what this. Oh, that's very nice of you, Lisa. You guys were on form today. Oh, I say my chat room is great because these are people who are truly interested in learning and understanding things rather than just coming in to cause trouble. So again, if you'd like to be in the chat room, please join Patreon. $5 a month. There's 6 live shows, and it really supports the channel because, as I said, I'm demonetized heavily. So, but I truly says, thank you, Pat, for all the illogical analysis. Thank you. What? No, there was no chaos. Wait a minute. There was no chaos in the chat because you're my friends, and it's not chaotic, believe me. So all is good. All is very, very good. Thanks, Pat. This was a good review of a strange bird. Oops, I mean, God, he was a strange bird, that's for sure. No question about that. His grave was left unmarked. Wow, did they take away that fancy stuff that they had for him? Oh, I did not know that. Interesting. Well, thank you, Joe. Brilliant show today. Thank you to Pat and everyone in the chat. Thank you, Joe, very, very much. And Doreen, it's also a great show, great chatting. You're most welcome. And so thank you for being here. You're a great crowd. And I'm glad this was brought to my attention because honestly, I had no clue who he was. I really didn't. So anyway, thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye.